Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Voyagers. And this is a new science fiction film starring Colin Farrell, Ty Sheridan, Fionn Whitehead, and Lily Rose Depp. And this is from writer-director Neil Berger, who previously had done Divergent. And this is a YA science fiction film about going into space. It sets up the film with this idea that we need to find a new home, but it's going to take us 86 years to get there. So we genetically engineer these little kids, and they're going to wind up growing up and having kids on their own, and then their kids are going to have kids, and then probably they'll be the ones that actually make it to this new planet. And you have Colin Farrell, who's playing the adult in the room, who has set up this program, and all these kids are being kind of, they're going to be taking these like drinks. They don't really feel anything. They're very subdued. They don't really have emotions. It's feeling very much like Equilibrium. And that's the thing too about, right off the bat, you can tell Berger has seen a lot of science fiction films and have read a lot of science fiction work, and this is just very much derivative of a lot of different things. You have that idea of the lack of emotion and not being able to show anything, and that becomes a crux in the beginning third of the film that brings some tension because you have Colin Farrell, who's the only one really feeling anything, who is lonely and is maybe connecting with a young Lily Rose Depp. And is that really the best kind of feeling? Should he be like rubbing her shoulder and putting his hand on her? And is that appropriate? And you have Colin Farrell, who definitely has some moments. He's a very talented actor, but there are some moments that it's like him doing his American accent, which isn't 100% convincing in this. It feels a little subdued, and you don't really get a whole lot from him. But obviously the main focus of this film are the young cast members, and you have Ty Sheridan, who is great in Mud. I thought is a very talented actor, but honestly, a lot of the things I've seen him in lately, they're kind of not great. He hasn't had the same kind of charisma or vulnerability, and in this film he feels a little clunky, and his performance feels a little off and awkward at times, and not in the sense like that's part of his character. It just feels like it's not really firing on all cylinders. You have Lily Rose Depp, who has her moments, but really the one that carries a lot of the tension and heavy lifting in this film is Fionn Whitehead, who is intense and unnerving. And this film goes through a lot of different kinds of things, and there's a lot of paranoia going on. And as the film progresses I don't want to give too much away of the plot because there's a lot of twists and turns here. And obviously one of the biggest moving pieces of the film is that we have Sheridan and Whitehead's characters stopping their drug usage. And that drug regimen that's suppressing their emotions, and they start feeling things. And this is where Berger's direction gets a little cheesy and cringy with some of like the obnoxious editing in of other shots for like this effect, and just random shots, then they don't really feel like they work. And then there's moments of like these two guys wrestling around, and like it feels so cheesy and silly. It honestly feels like out of an 80s music video or something. And it's so weird and feels misplaced. There's a lot of unintentionally cringy things in this film that really take you out of it, because as the film goes on, this becomes very intense. And there's some mystery. There's some things to figure out. And it has some interesting ideas when it comes to groupthink and gaslighting and who do you trust and how people can manipulate people. And it's really, really hard to watch today because it hits way too close to home. And you have all of that going on, building the tension. There's definitely tension here. You have situations as the film goes on where it does become more intense, but it does kind of divulge into some silliness and some set pieces, but that might not work as well. There's definitely some lack of logic in some of the story as the film goes on. But that tension and Whitehead really carry this film because you do have Berger, who has some very inspired direction at times, but other times it feels very clunky. It's really inconsistent. And the film does have a very good look to it. It definitely has a big budget. And it's something that it feels like they're doing a lot of good things in the film, but there's also equal amount of things that don't work. And you have Trevor Grektis, whose score really is effective throughout the film. Some of the cinematography is inspired with some of the visuals, but also some of the editing can be a little awkward and clunky at times. And the biggest thing is this film, as it divulges, really just turns into Lord of the Flies. And there's definitely a lot of beats of Lord of the Flies in this film, and you're just kind of like, okay. And like, I get that there's definitely an influence, but it really feels like this film is derivative of that a lot. And in the end, specifically at the end, as the film's wrapping up, there's some choices throughout the film where some editing, it's like, should have cut at that point. Could they have wrapped things up at this point? Could this scene have ended at a certain point? And you have some awkwardness in that. Some of the things are just too cringy and funny to like take seriously. And some of the performances from some of the younger cast doesn't really hold up. But you have, every time you have like a moment from Whitehead, you do have some kind of awkward acting moment from somebody in the young cast as well. So I think in summation, Voyagers is a film that has a lot of fun sci-fi tropes, tries to do a lot, and definitely has a lot of ideas from a lot of different places. And in the end, I think you can just enjoy it as a fun, kind of throwaway sci-fi flick. This isn't going to be something that I feel like is going to transcend and really impact you in a deeply moving forward after watching the film. But for what it was, I had some fun with it. Just a fun YA sci-fi film. But those are my thoughts on Voyagers. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.